A man walks into a Cameo studio. He sets up his camera, he smooths his hair, he hits records, and then he charges strangers $50 to teach them how to stay married. This man has been divorced 3 times in 4 years. This is not a joke. This is not a bit. This is a real video that Kody Brown filmed in 2026, and it is currently available for purchase on the internet right now. The audacity alone should be studied in a lab. If you are new here and you just stumbled onto this channel, first of all, welcome. You found us at the right time. Hit that subscribe button right now and drop a like on this video because we are about to go deep into one of the most unintentionally hilarious pivots in reality television history. This channel covers sister wives like it is our full-time job because, honestly, at this point, it kind of is. Now let's get into it. Here is what actually happened. According to a report from Soap Dirt published on April 2nd, 2026, Kody Brown has joined Cameo and is actively selling personalized video messages where he dispenses relationship wisdom. Marriage advice from Kody Brown. The man, the myth, the cautionary tale. He is out here telling paying customers how to love their wives, how to serve their wives, how to, and I want you to brace yourself for this, pray to their wives. Those are his words, not mine. Hi, I pray to Robin. I serve her. That is the framing he chose. That is the product he is selling. Now, before we go any further, I want to just sit with the setup for a second, because the comedy here is almost too perfect. This is a man who entered our lives as the patriarch of a plural marriage. He had 4 wives. He had a sprawling family. He had a TLC deal and a house in Las Vegas with a cul-de-sac that became its own cultural landmark. The entire premise of Sister Wives was that Kody Brown had figured something out, that he had cracked a code about love and commitment and family structure that the rest of us conventional monogamists were too narrow-minded to understand. That was the show. That was the pitch. And now, in 2026, the man is on Cameo selling $50 videos about how to keep 1 wife. 1! The same number that most people start with. Let us do a quick historical inventory because context is everything here. Wife number 1, Meri. They were legally married. They spiritually divorced in 2014 when Kody married Robin legally, so Robin's kids could be adopted. Meri stayed in the family, technically, until the final seasons of Sister Wives when it became undeniably clear that Kody had emotionally checked out of that relationship years earlier. Meri eventually left the plural family entirely and has since moved on, by all appearances, into a much happier chapter of her life. Wife number 2, Janelle. Janelle was the practical one, the builder, the woman who actually made things work logistically for that entire family for decades. She separated from Kody spiritually during the later seasons of the show after a series of conflicts that played out very publicly on camera. Wife number 3, Christine. Christine is the one who finally said the word out loud. She left first. She packed her things, she moved back to Utah, she found love again, she got engaged, she got married, and she is now, by every visible metric, thriving in a way that feels almost pointed. And then there is wife number 4, Robin. Robin is the one who remains. Robin is the one he prays to. So when Kody Brown sits down in front of a camera and says, "Here is my advice for making your marriage work," the first question that every single rational adult watching should be asking is, worked for whom? Because 3 out of 4 of the women he committed himself to either left him or were emotionally abandoned by him, or both. That is a 75% failure rate. In any other field, a 75% failure rate disqualifies you from being an expert. If a financial advisor lost money on 3 out of every 4 investments, you would not pay them to manage your portfolio. If a contractor built 4 houses and 3 of them fell down, you would not hire them to build your 4th. But here we are. The internet is open. Cameo is waiting. $50, please. Now, here is where it gets philosophically interesting, because I want to be fair to the content of the advice for a moment before I completely bury it. The advice itself, stripped of its source, is not insane. Serve your wife. Prioritize her. Treat her like a queen. Put her needs at the center of the relationship. That is actually pretty standard relationship counsel. Marriage therapists say versions of this all the time. The problem is not the advice. The problem is the curriculum vitae attached to it. Because if this advice is correct and it works, then why did it not work with Meri? Why did it not work with Janelle? Why did it not work with Christine? And if the answer is, well, it only works now because Robin is the right one, then Kody has not actually given you marriage advice. He has given you wife selection advice, which is a completely different product, and honestly, a much darker video. Think about what that framing really means. If the secret to a successful marriage is simply finding the specific person you are capable of worshiping, then the other 3 women in his life were not failed marriages. They were auditions, and Robin won. Not because of some universal truth about devotion and partnership, but because she is the one who fits the particular shape of Kody's attention. The other 3 had their time on the stage and did not make the cut. And now the man who ran that elimination tournament is charging strangers to learn from his process. This is the content. This is the product. $50. Let us talk about Cameo for a second, because I think it is important to understand what Cameo actually is and what it means when someone joins it. Cameo launched as a platform for celebrities to sell personalized video shoutouts. Happy birthday from your favorite athlete. Congratulations on your promotion from that actor you watched in the 90s. It started as a novelty, and it became something more complicated over time, which is this: a very accurate barometer of where someone's career currently stands. The people charging $500 on Cameo are still actively working. The people charging $50 are in a different category. They are monetizing the residual warmth of fame that has already peaked. They are converting nostalgia into grocery money. And that is not a judgment. That is just the math of how that platform functions. Kody Brown once headlined a flagship TLC reality franchise. SisterWives ran for 18 seasons. 18. That is longer than most scripted dramas. That is longer than most marriages, which, given the subject matter, lands differently. For over a decade, this family was a staple of the network. They had specials, they had reunion episodes, they had a loyal audience that followed every move, every house, every conflict, every spiritual ceremony on the lawn. And the ending of that show, the actual conclusion of that run, was not a grand finale with a bow on it. It was a slow fade, a cancellation, a silence. And now, the sequel to that silence is a Cameo profile and $50 marriage tutorials. This is what the post-reality TV chapter actually looks like for most people who were never quite famous enough to convert it into something else. It does not look like a talk show. It does not look like a book deal. It looks like a link in a bio. It looks like a camera set up in a spare room. It looks like telling the algorithm what it wants to hear and hoping that enough strangers click. And now I want to get to the quote, because we have been building to this and it deserves its own moment. According to the Soap Dirt report, Kody Brown in these Cameo marriage advice videos has said, and I'm going to read this slowly because it earns that pace, "I pray to Robin, and I serve her." Read it again. "I pray to Robin. I serve her." Now sit with that for a second. Not as a joke, but as a sincere statement from a man who means every word of it, because I actually believe he does. I think Kody Brown is not performing here. I think he is confessing. This is not a marketing language designed to sound poetic. This is a man describing his interior experience of his marriage in language that is usually reserved for religious devotion. He has built an altar, and Robin is on it, and he lights the candles every morning, and he thinks this is what love looks like. And here is my read on this, and I want to be clear that this is analysis, not accusation, because the distinction matters. I do not think Kody Brown is a villain in the cartoonish sense. I think he is a man with a very specific and very rigid template for what marriage means to him, and that template requires total devotion flowing in one direction. Him toward her. Complete surrender. Wife as the organizing principle of his entire existence. And for 3 women over decades, that template either never fit or eventually stopped fitting. Because devotion that is intense, coming entirely from one direction, is not partnership. It is worship. And you cannot build an equal relationship on an altar. What is fascinating, in the way that slow-motion car crashes are fascinating, is that the women who left him are all visibly fine. Meri is building her new life. Janelle has her children and her independence. Christine has a husband who chose her without a waiting list. They all stepped off the altar and landed on solid ground. The devotion Kody was offering was not sustaining them. It was consuming the space where reciprocity was supposed to live. And yet here he is, framing that exact dynamic as the lesson, as the thing to replicate. Pay me $50 and I will teach you how to make your wife the center of your universe. What he is not saying, because perhaps he cannot see it, is that the women in his actual life did not want to be the center of his universe. They wanted to be his partner. Equal, lateral, seen as people rather than altars. And when that did not happen, they left. Now let us zoom out and talk about the thematic irony that ties the entire Kody Brown story into one neat, devastating bow. The premise of Sister Wives, the whole television project, was that plural marriage is not a lesser form of love. It was framed as abundance. More wives meant more family. More family meant more love. The Browns were going to show America that the conventional model was limiting and that their way was expansive and joyful and spiritually meaningful. That was the pitch for 18 seasons. And now, the last man standing from that experiment is on Cameo, preaching the virtues of singular, total, exclusive devotion to one woman. One! He is not talking about plural love anymore. He is not referencing the spiritual covenant he made in front of cameras with 4 different women. He is talking about Robin. Only Robin. The Soapdit report specifically notes that in these videos, Meri, Janelle, and Christine are effectively wiped from his history. 3 women he stood before and made promises to. 3 women he built children with. 3 families that existed inside the larger family. Gone. Edited out of the story he is now telling about himself. That erasure is not an accident. It is a survival mechanism. You cannot sell marriage wisdom while also having to explain why your previous 3 marriages ended, so you start the story from where you are comfortable. You start it with Robin. You tell people about the altar. You do not mention the 3 women who stepped off it. But here's the thing about the internet. It remembers. The clips are still there. The reunion specials are still there. The scenes where Kody tells Christine that the relationship is not one he can invest in are still there. The scenes where Meri talks to a camera in a confessional about feeling invisible in her own family, still there. Janelle is sitting in a camper on a lot in Flagstaff because the communal home never got built. Still there. You cannot curate yourself out of a story that was filmed in real time for 18 years. The archive exists, and it does not take Kody's notes. And that brings us to Flagstaff, because I think the geography matters here. At one point, the plan was 4 houses on 4 lots, a compound. A family in close proximity, a physical manifestation of the plural life. What actually exists in Flagstaff right now, as of this reporting, is Kody and Robin in one house. 3 empty lots, 3 spaces that were supposed to be homes for 3 other families, that are no longer families in the way they were intended to be. The cul-de-sac that was supposed to represent the abundance of plural love is a monument to what did not work. And somewhere near the edge of that quiet street, Kody Brown is setting up his camera and recording a video about how to keep your wife happy. This is not a story that has a villain. It is more uncomfortable than that. It is a story about a man who built an identity around a life that collapsed around him, and who is now trying to extract something monetizable from the wreckage. It is a story about the specific texture of fading relevance. Not the dramatic crash, not the public scandal, just the slow, quiet pivot toward whatever will still pay. A Cameo link, a marriage advice reel, $50 from a stranger who watched the show. The real audience for these videos, and I say this with complete sincerity, is one person. Robin. Every video Kody Brown posts to Cameo telling strangers that he serves his wife and prays to her is a public performance of his devotion to a woman sitting in the next room. This is not a man teaching. This is a man auditioning. He is broadcasting his loyalty on a platform that anyone can see, making it undeniable and documented and searchable. Because the 3 women before Robin all eventually concluded that the love was not what it appeared to be. And maybe the way to prove it is different this time is to say it where everyone can hear it. $50 a message. Pay to watch him love her. Pay to be part of the proof. It would be almost sweet if it were not also the marketing strategy of a man who has run out of other strategies. The day Kody Brown started charging strangers for marriage advice was the day the show was already over. TLC just had not filmed the credits yet. What we are watching now is the epilogue that was not supposed to be public, the part that was supposed to happen quietly, off camera, after the finale. Except there was no clean finale. There was no bow. There was just a slow trailing off, and then a Cameo account, and a camera in a spare room, and the belief that the audience that watched for 18 seasons might be willing to pay $50 to keep watching. And maybe some of them will. Maybe you are tempted right now. Not because the advice is good, but because it is Kody Brown saying it, which makes it an artifact, which makes it its own kind of entertainment. There is a version of this where buying cameos is the joke, where you pay $50 to get advice from a man with a 75% failure rate, and you screenshot it and you post it, and you both get something out of the transaction. The content lives on. The algorithm gets fed. The cycle continues. But here is what I actually want you to take away from this. What we are watching with Kody Brown and Cameo is not unique to him. This is the template. This is what the back end of reality television fame looks like for the vast majority of people who were never quite famous enough to convert it into something sustainable. The show ends, the checks stop, the calls stop coming, and you're left with a camera, an audience that still remembers you, and the question of what you can still sell. For some people, that is merchandise. For some people, it is appearances. For some people, it is a podcast. And for Kody Brown, right now, it is marriage advice. For $50, from a man who has been divorced 3 times and is currently praying to his 4th wife. The math does not work. The resume does not support the product. The archive contradicts the narrative. And yet the camera is on and the link is live. And somewhere in Flagstaff, there is a man who genuinely believes he has figured something out worth charging for. Drop a ring emoji in the comments if you would buy that cameo purely as a bit. Drop a skull if you think Robin watches every single one of those videos from the other room and does not say a word about them. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel right now, because I am covering every cameo he posts, every update, every new development in this story until the channel deletes itself or the content stops coming, whichever happens first. I will be here either way. See you in the next one!